lounging, son.
Welcome back to another episode of the Comic Clash Podcast, guys. I am your host, Mighty Dubot, and with me, as always, my homie of homies, Ryan Balcom. Say what's up to people, Ryan.
What's going on, guys?
Today we're going to be talking about Miracleman by. I love how in my book it states it doesn't say Alan Moore. It literally says the original writer with Mike Anglo.
He doesn't. He doesn't want to be acknowledged. It's like most of his reprint stuff. They don't. Most of it they don't. I know that they do like Alan Moore and the Swamp Thing stuff because they're doing Swamp Thing by Alan Moore absolutes, you know. But yeah, I think I was too like I was reading that any of the royalties from the Marvel stuff that they reprinted, he wanted them to go to Mick Anglo, who's the creator of Miracleman, which is how the character originally started, you know? Right. So, I mean, I think that after reading it, you obviously see the comparisons between Shazam and Captain.
Oh, yeah,
right?
100%.
So,
100%.
I mean, I did a little research too, like before, and, you know, this originally, like, this character, this version, Mickey Moran, right, like, appeared in Miracleman number 25 in the 50s, right? And the reason it was 25 is because prior to that, they were reprints of the Captain Marvel books. So once they lost the rights to publish it in the UK, Mick Anglo just basically redid stuff and did his own versions of Miracleman. And then I believe, you know, later on, obviously Marvel didn't want them using the name Miracleman, which is why in turn they did Miracleman, you know? And like these issues that we're reading, even you read the Marvel hardcover, right? Like that was the version you read. I had the Eclipse comics, the single issues, and even those are reprints of stuff that was printed in black and white in a magazine called Warrior in the UK. That's why if you look on at least in my version, I don't know if it has it in yours, but like it starts up with a 50s story by Mick Anglo, right? But then it jumps into A Dream of Flying, which is in 1982, and that's when these stories were originally published. This particular comic was published in 85. Right, so like that's when the actual single issues came out. So I believe not till issue, what was 6 of this series is when the new stories started happening. But yeah, I mean it's kind of like a long story. I mean I think you and I were even talking about it.
Yeah, no, it's like the Miracleman like saga of it, like in the real world is a really interesting thing. Like a lot of people like this is one of those things where it's creator owned for the stories that you write, but you know it's pretty cool, like, you know what I mean, and you get the royalties for that, but then like when someone takes over, then they have the rights to whatever they write. So, you know, Alan Moore has the rights to you know, his run, whereas Neil Gaiman has the rights to his run. I know that Eclipse was purchased by Todd McFarlane in the 90s,
right?
And he actually
not actually the company, he just purchased all the like the stuff that they have, the titles, but the company was already gone. Like they had already stopped publishing comics.
And like so he even teased putting it in putting Miracleman in Hellspawn. You know, actual Miracleman, and I don't know. There's this whole long sorted thing that happened between. I'm not well versed in the case or anything, but. It got to the point where he did introduce Miracleman, but it was like instead of saying calling him Miracleman, they called Man of Miracles, and like, you know, this whole weird sort of thing. And then Neil Gaiman took over, and then we all know what happened with Todd McFarlane and Neil Gaiman. That was kind of messy.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, look, Todd is very. He's a very brash personality. Todd McFarlane is very, you know. He can be abrasive as fuck. Like I've watched other interviews, you know, I've talked to him, and even as I'm talking to him, like I can see like where it could turn, and it could kind of be like, but it's not like offensive, you know, but that's just his personality. He's just very like in your face, right? And I mean, I don't know much about the Neil Gaiman McFarlane stuff other than like there was that huge lawsuit. I know that on the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, which I told you about, they were reading like the depositions, right? Like they did like 5 weeks, you know, where they were doing it every Monday, going through it. I think it was 5 weeks. And, you know, that spiraled out into like the whole Angela thing, like where, you know, Gaiman fucking, you know, was fighting for his rights for that. He, in order to like fund his, I think it was Miracles and Flying or something, or Mans and Miracles, something like that, an LLC company that he was using to fund his legal battles. And that's when he did Marvel 1602. He even put for Todd out of necessity. You know, like he used all of the earnings he got from Marvel 1602 to fund his legal battle with McFarlane. So it's just it is pretty interesting. Like that. I mean, first of all, we'll get into the comic books. The comic books are great, but it's just so interesting the history that this character has taken. I mean, Mick Anglo, you know, awesome everything he did, but like, you know, from Alan Moore on, right? Like it just continuously has had this like mystique about it. I think for our generation especially, like we didn't grow up reading it right when it came out. You know, then Marvel buys it.
It was actually my first read too. So
yeah, this is like my third of this arc. Now Marvel has it, and obviously anybody that is up to date on like current stuff with Marvel, which is I think what kind of prompted you to finally read it, was the tease in the Timeless issue that came out a week or two ago. Well, as of they were recording a couple weeks ago. And we'll see if he actually like, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to like accept that it'll actually happen.
My thing is like, who's gonna do it? You know what I mean? Will Marvel let? Because I know, like 25 years ago or something. That's when Gaiman was writing for it, and it ended in a cliffhanger. And I know, like, you know, a lot of people that I talked to about Miracleman, they said that they really hope that they let Gaiman finish off this story. You know, because I'm sure, you know, Neil Gaiman is like friggin', you know, you can't let a Neil Gaiman story go unfinished, right? But like, you know, then like on the interwebs and, you know, the shithole that is Twitter, people are like, oh, Donny Cates is gonna do it, and you know, all sorts of different people are like, you know, like everyone has their ideal person who's to do it, but like, you know what I mean?
I personally do.
Right now,
I don't think they should do any other Miracleman other than letting Gaiman and Buckingham, if they want to finish it, they should finish that first. You know, like I don't see how you bypass that, because that was solicited. They reprinted up until, you know, the cliffhanger where it left off, you know, on the original run in the 80s, and they solicited the issues. You know what I mean? I think it was supposed to be the Golden Age, the Silver Age. It was a trilogy of 6-issue arcs, was what they planned. So I don't, and to be honest with you, I just don't think, I don't want to see Miracleman in the Marvel universe. I just don't. That doesn't appeal to me as a comic book fan. It doesn't appeal to me either. You know, I think that it works well in its own thing. It works well in its own thing. Yeah, it doesn't need to be integrated into Marvel. Because when you do that, it's not like they're gonna focus on a character that's not really a Marvel character. They're gonna let it fall to the wayside. You know, they bought all of CrossGen, all of their intellectual properties. They put out 2 miniseries, and none of those properties are even touched. Right? Like Marvel, to me, sometimes when they buy up properties, they buy it up and they don't do shit with it. It's almost like they just want to hoard it. You know, like they did it with the Malibu stuff. You know, like I forgot the name of those characters. They had that cartoon too. Ultraverse, like Prime, the Ultraverse, Prime. So they own that too, but they don't do anything with it. You know, so
Prototype was one of my favorite fools, dude.
So I just think that leave Miracleman to its own thing. If you want to publish a Miracleman comic book, I can be okay with that, even though I know it's not going to be like what this series is and what it becomes later on, you know, on more stuff. But at least don't integrate it to Marvel. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, obviously they're trying to, because they fucking put that on there. You know what I mean? Like, so, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the Miracleman book that we read.
Yeah, let's do it.
So obviously we've been talking about it. Alan Moore is the writer of this. We get the little prequel, I guess you could say, that Mick Anglo writes and draws in the beginning. Then we also got Gary Leach on art throughout, and Alan Davis comes on with issue 3 and 4. So like I think we said it too, like before we were recording, like I read the first 4 issues because I read it in a different format than you did. I looked online and that's what it said. It collected the first 4 issues. I think you said there was some other stuff.
There was 2 extra stories. One's a glimpse in the future, which is Yesterday Gambit, which is a story with one of the Warp Smith and Miracleman from 1985 traveling to 1981 and 1963 when all the crazy stuff happens, and Miracleman fights himself. And then there's one about the Warp Smith. It goes into this weird Clockwork Orange slang talk where basically the Warp Smiths are time cops and like they're I won't get into that. I won't digress. They're cool stories, but like as of yet, I don't see the relevance to it. But I mean, I'm sure in the future volumes that I'm going to read that I'll see. You know what I mean? But we're just going to talk about the prologue from 1956 to chapter 10, Zarathustra.
Obviously, like I said, I've read it 3 times now. Just this first arc. I've read past this. I think I read maybe the second trade's worth or whatever the reprint is of it from Marvel. But I've kind of I want to get the singles, and they're kind of expensive, so like I have to like buy them in.
Are they like magazine format?
No, they're comic book.
Like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, these were originally published in Warrior magazine, so I don't know what that size was. I want to assume that it was a little bit larger because the text is really small on this to the point where like
it's really wordy.
It's wordy, but I wouldn't mind if I didn't have to strain to read it. It is like it's just really, really tiny, the text. So I would imagine maybe it is bigger. I mean, I guess I could have researched that. I didn't think to do it. Like I said, I decided, before when I first read it or tried to read it in the Marvel reprint, I didn't like the recoloring. And I had read online that a lot of people said that they didn't like it, that they should have just, reprinted it as is. So I just decided like I'll get the singles, and thank God I got them a little while ago because number one has quadrupled in the price I paid for it, and I think it's probably because of like the whole timeless thing. So I got it at a pretty good deal, but I had long wanted to read it, probably like yourself, like you heard about it. You probably were. Maybe Spawn was kind of one of the first ways you heard about it.
Spawn was the first way I heard about it, but then like throughout the years of just comic stuff, it's always like been like, oh, Miracleman, and then like I wondered, I didn't know enough about him to be like to have it like pique my interest like that, but like over the past few years, before like the timeless thing, a lot of older comic heads are always telling me, yeah, you got to read Miracleman. It's amazing. You like Alan Moore? I'm like, yeah, Alan Moore Swamp Thing. It was like, but we talk about that very often on this podcast and how much we love it. And the kind of like for me, like reading it, this kind of falls into that realm. Like the style in which it's written. It's you see the notes of young Alan Moore here. Whereas Watchmen is pretty heavy, and V for Vendetta is the only thing that took me a little out of V for Vendetta was just the accents. Like, you know what I mean? It was very British. in a lot of ways, and like British have their own way of talking. The British people have English people have their own way of talking and their own slang and how they piece things together. And I have no clue about that, but I'm sure Alan Moore did that very well because I was utterly confused, like when Cockneys started talking, and
yeah,
you know what I mean. But it is what it is. But this, I mean, aside from that weird Clockwork Orange language in one of the extra stories, this is a hell of a read. Whether it be dialogue, whether it be the caption boxes, it's actually very poetic, which reminds me of the Swamp Thing.
Yeah, and this preceded Swamp Thing. Yeah. This preceded Watchmen. Like even though these issues in particular from Eclipse were printed, I would say either I think around the same time Watchmen was coming out, maybe. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, this is before all that, like this is, and you can see like a little bit of like the way he plays with superhero tropes and stuff and deconstruction like here, and then how that leads into Watchmen later on, I think.
Yeah. And, this takes place in 1982. So we're well into the Cold War of all the stuff that's actually going on in the world. So they take the nuclear threat and they really freaking do the damn thing with it, especially. And you know, then like they take the with the ideas of Superman, and you know they quote Friedrich Nietzsche a lot, who actually wrote Zarathustra, in which Nietzsche is talking about the idea of the Ubermensch, the Superman. So you know this is a very well thought out book in that regard. But what really captured me is the two paths that like Miracle Man. So let's just get into the story. That way I can better explain. So basically, in 1963, the Miracle Man family, which consists of Miracle Man, Kid Miracle Man, and Young Miracle Man, they are sent out to an assignment in which they go to this flying fortress and they're supposed to stop it from whatever is happening. But before that can even happen, an atomic bomb gets set off and boom, just blows these guys away, right? And just even in that first page where when they're talking about it, just how Mickey Moran describes his dream. Like, it's just absolutely freaking poetic, dude. Like there's no fear in it first, only the eerie keening of the wind, swirling silent blizzards. Like, that's the wording. You can see that, like, I kind of feel like Alan Moore kind of like really deep dove into the thoughts about this, and like it's Alan Moore.
Yeah, I think he really wanted to write this. I think that they had talked about wanting to revive the character, and Alan Moore was like chomping at the bit to do it. So he obviously had a love for the character. I mean, just because Alan Moore doesn't do interviews and talk about comics, like isn't writing mainstream comics, isn't writing comic books anymore, doesn't mean he doesn't love the medium. And I think that it was so evident, like, and I think he just kept, it was just one hit after another, which he just became so disheartened with the industry as a whole that he had to leave.
Yeah.
And I think that we got robbed of a lot, and I think I've mentioned this too, we've got robbed of a lot of great comics that we probably could have got from him if people in the head of the industry were not completely shitting all over creators and fucking lying through their teeth, But I think that this series, it's easy. Like, I think after I read the first issue the first time, I'm like, I totally see why people hold this in such high regard, because the writing is so strong, and it is an interesting look at this type of a superhero who really is two people. It really isn't like he is an alter ego, and I think even like I'm going to jump around because I don't really think we need to like talk in terms of like a plot and stuff. I'm just the way his wife, Mike Moran's wife, when he does like reawaken and realize that he used to be Miracle Man, right? And she even like brings up the fact that like, well, where do you go when this body inhabits? Like that's an interesting thing to think about, because like I don't think as kids, if we were reading Captain Marvel, we're not like, oh, where did Billy go? Like, no, Billy's there. He's just older, right? Like Billy Batson. And then going,
it's kind of like a big situation, Tom Hanks big situation where you're still the kid, but you're just an adult body.
Yeah,
but
that's what I always perceive.
Is very like it's very new, because it's like it is two people. It's Miracle Man and Mick Moran.
Yeah, Moran.
And after the big explosion, he comes to and he ages, and it's like 18 years later, and he ages as a regular person. But then, like, finally, when he reawakens, he's back to the 1963 Miracle Man that he was, because he was lying dormant inside of him. And I especially like it, like, when they do the big reveal, like, what happened to Kid Miracle Man, right?
Yeah.
How he survived as well, but he never knew it, and he moved on, and he became this head of this like multinational, like, cybergenics, like, company. But then, like, we see him, and like you don't even think that, oh, he's still in Miracle Man form, and he's been in Miracle Man form for 18 years. So finally, when he speaks the word and he's trying to revert back, and he's back to like his regular 13-year-old self, it's like little quivering little 13-year-old boy. It's like, yo, like, what the fuck is really going on with this magic, right? And then, it's not magic.
No.
right? And you find that part I don't want to ruin, but
I mean, you
yeah,
can. Fuck it. Just it's
okay,
story's been
yeah,
out for fucking like over 30 years, dude. You can spoil it.
I won't fucking yeah. So you come to find out that it's all part of this whole Project Zarathustra thing where they try to make the Superman and then they implant memories basically derived from kids' comics, and it all was a lie. It all was a lie. Him encountering the mystical being that was like a physicist who was beyond time and reality, and these magic words and all these things. But no, it was all just a really well laid out government plan to create a Superman because England was so far behind in the nuclear arms race.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so
It's crazy.
like that's nuts because America has an A bomb, China and Japan are not that far behind. Like like holy crap, like here we are. Then what are we gonna do? Oh, we we found this like from the visitor. And they keep on referring to this alien life form as the visitor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to say that that's where they got their technology from, and they were trying. They go into this whole long explanation as to how they created the Miraclemen, right? And how they're like orphans from with no family because their fathers were all part of like the Royal Air Force. And dude, this is such a great, like, once it starts getting into that stuff and into the Zarathustra stuff, I was locked. I was locked. I was like, holy crap, this is some amazing stuff right here. This is such a twist on like the Captain Marvel Uberman tropes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uberman, Superman tropes.
Uberman, yeah.
Uberman, and it's just so well executed. I honestly, like, when I first started reading this, I started reading like, this is gonna be another one of those like Alan Moore really long, lengthy thing, and it is long and lengthy. Don't get me wrong, like, but it's good. It's really enthralling. Like, wherever it starts picking up for the reader, that it just doesn't slow down. And yeah, I'm like eager to freaking read the next couple volumes. This is some really fun stuff. The artwork is great. I love the campiness in his design,
Yeah.
but it like works. You know what I mean? It works for the story they're trying to convey, and this world they've built, right? And it's some powerful stuff. It's some really powerful stuff, especially when it starts going into like the idea that Miracleman is his own person, and what that means to the relationship between him and his wife.
I know the psychology of the book is really what appeals to me, because at first glance you look at it, right, like especially the cover to #1, like, oh, it's a superhero comic book, right? Like, kind of a dorky costume, even for the even for the 60s, even for the Silver Age, it's kind of dorky. Like, what's the design? What does that mean?
Like,
but
the yellow balls. Do we need the yellow?
But he takes like this campy kind of character. I mean, Captain Marvel is campy as fuck. Like the original version. He had a fucking sidekick that was a talking tiger. So I mean, but it's all what you do with the character. Like, you take the bones of something and you can build something cool from that. And Alan Moore, not to say that I haven't read all the Mick Anglo stuff, so I can't really speak on that. But he takes these characters, Kid Miracleman, and really turns them on their head, dude. Like, just the fact that, like even describing the way he looks, like he sparkles, right? Like, he's sparkling. Yeah. The wife like talks like that, and then she becomes pregnant. But when she has to tell him, she's like, "But not with your kid. It's with Miracleman's."
Yeah,
like, that's some fucked up shit.
That was the bomb. I was like, damn.
Yeah, that's fucked up. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, it just, like, I don't know, like, and then what does that do to him? Like, or Kid Miracleman, like, ending up in this time period and deciding to not change back, because obviously they do have the ability to change back and forth, but he just didn't. Is it out of fear? Like, what's the reason behind it? And he just becomes an evil son of a bitch. I know just bits and pieces of stuff that I haven't read forward in the series, where like there's some really crazy scenes. I mean, the artists that come on too, Rick Veitch, John Toddleman, like, just amazing. And then the Neil Gaiman and Mark Buckingham stuff, which I have not read either. I refuse to read it until I can read it in its
Yeah,
original format.
exactly.
So I would wait.
Well, that's honestly, I kind of want to know what's going on with the Neil Gaiman stuff, because everyone knows how much I love Neil Gaiman. Like, Sandman's one of my favorite stories of all time. So it's like I want to see his interpretation of what's going on with this. Like, I have no idea what I'm getting into. Like, keep in mind, I've read no synopses of anything. Like,
Yeah.
The general idea of Miracleman, I get and I understand. But like going into it, especially after this first volume, dude, I'm like ready to go. I'm ready. I'm like, I hope that, like, by the time I'm done reading the Neil Gaiman stuff, they're gonna announce that it's Neil Gaiman stuff that they're gonna finish off. You know what I mean? So it's all fresh in my head to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's the thing that's exciting me the most about all this stuff right now, about all this news going on with Miracleman.
Yeah, I mean, I think as early as 2019 was like the last time they said anything about publishing it and getting it back on the schedule. But obviously, like, does the pandemic, did that affect it? Like, there's so many things that could affect us ever actually getting the conclusion to that. Like, do they even want to? Does Gaiman and Buckingham, do they want to fucking finish off the story, or are they just kind of like over it? Are they done? Like, do they even want to deal with the constant up and down of it?
Or is it like already done, but they have to go back and change things because, like you said, that was what 25 years ago, right? 25 years ago when it was last published, the Neil Gaiman stuff, and like, do they have to change it? Do they have to re-edit it? And like, is the stuff written back then still going to be as well received as now? You know what I mean? Even if they did finish their story, even if they didn't change anything, like, I don't know. Like, there's so many questions. There's so many questions that just surround this whole title, this whole mystique, this whole Miracleman thing. That in itself makes it fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, like I said, like, I don't remember when I first heard about Miracleman, but it always was like this, to me, like this mythical book that I never thought I would get to read. Like, I always thought it was going to be hard for me to find or whatever. And at the time when I discovered it, it was hard to find. It was not in print. I'm sure the back issues were probably expensive back then. I don't know the pricing back then, but I wasn't readily available. There was no trades in print. Eclipse had been gone. McFarlane didn't own them yet. Didn't own the company yet. He didn't have rights to publish it. He wasn't reprinting shit. So I just, like, always, it was always in the back of my mind, and finally just took the plunge, dude. And I got it. And it's one of the few times where the hype and the expectations that I place on something, it delivered. Like, because there's so many times that I've gone back to read stories that are, like, considered classics or considered, like, really high marks in comics, and I don't always agree with that. Like, where I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great, like, everybody loves this, or it's critically acclaimed, all this stuff, and then I read it and I'm like, oh, it's good, but it's not as great as I thought it was going to be. And that's not to say that the work isn't good.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel with a lot of things, especially stuff written in the 80s. Like, take for instance another Alan Moore title that everyone was like, oh, you gotta read it. It's gonna be fantastic. Da, 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 da. So I put it on the pedestal. Right? You put it on the pedestal, and it's there until you finally read it. And when I did, I was like, this is fine. This is not like, of course I'm talking about The Killing Joke. It's like, it was so overly hyped by everyone. It was called, like, this visionary masterpiece, like, da 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 da. I'm like, Watchmen was better.
That's true. Yeah, it's true. I think Killing Joke is good, but I agree. I think that there is still so much of a hype around it that I don't even think he thinks it's one of his best works. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much other Alan Moore stuff. Like, that's, if you made me pick three, like, it wouldn't even be in my top three.
No,
at all.
Absolutely, 100%.
Not even close. So, but this, though, having preceded all of those books that we just mentioned, all of the other works that I loved by him, and to like it as much as I did, like, that's saying something, dude. That, like, he's just such a talented writer, man, and he's
absolutely
able to flesh out characters and get you pulled in from the first issues that he writes, like, immediately. Every single time I've read, like, a first issue of something, whether it's Miracleman, Swamp Thing, his first Swamp Thing, or first issue of Watchmen, or League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, all his ABC.
That's what I want to read next.
You ever read it?
Extraordinary Gentleman. No, like I've seen the corny ass movie, whatever. But like it's always been in the back of my head. Like this is something that I want to read.
That's
Like,
funny. I just reread it. I have the tray that collects the first 2 volumes, and then I got book 3 and book 4. So I had read the first 2, but I hadn't read. I think it's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Century, and then Tempest, which is the last one that he did. It's so good. It's so good.
yeah, no. See, I want to read it. I know that was the last title he was working on. Like I think he just ended it like in 2019 or 2018. He stopped writing for League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Yeah, 2019. Yeah, like, and I remember hearing about it. Like, oh, the very last League of Extraordinary Gentlemen comes out this week. I'm like, wait, what? Alan Moore is still writing? Like this just goes to show you like what kind of lengths this guy would go to kind of like under the radar, but he does it on purpose, I guess. You know, like I want to read it. I want to see. Like it went from whenever it was. When was the first League of Extraordinary Gentlemen came out? Like late 80s, maybe early 90s.
No, 99.
Oh, 99. I didn't even know that.
It was published through Wildstorm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Alan Moore had his ABC Comics line through Wildstorm. It was originally going to be Image, but then Jim Lee sold Wildstorm to DC, which kind of pissed Alan Moore off because he never wanted to work with DC Comics again because of Watchmen. And then he basically said he would continue to do the books, but DC was to have no say in anything that he did. Basically, like he was supposed to be allowed to do whatever he wanted. And I think he pretty much did. He did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He did Tom Strong. He did the 10, I think it's called, and Promethea. Promethea is my favorite. I like it even better than League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, to be honest with you.
Promethea is also on my list as well.
It's that book. J.H. Williams, like, just watching what he has become now and watching him back then, and the fucking, like, you see the progression. I mean, he is just...
J.H. Williams is crazy. Like,
yeah, Promethea is amazing.
He is definitely one of the most unique comic book artists out
ever.
Still,
ever,
100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Promethea. Promethea is definitely on my list. Like, I know we have like hardcovers at Arsenal, so I gotta go pick those up. Maybe
I have all 3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah. See. Anyway, but I digress. Back to Miracleman. Like, this is like, you know, this definitely exceeded everything that I was expecting. I didn't know what to expect. Like I said, like I didn't have a bar set for me to like be disappointed, because I kind of went into it, it's like, oh, it's like Captain Marvel, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? But it's not. It really turns that on its ear. It's definitely something special.
Yeah, I mean, like, hopefully they. Well, actually not. Hopefully, I know they're doing an omnibus. They announced that they were going to do a new one. I believe that's going to collect. I think all of Alan Moore's stuff. I could be wrong on that. I don't remember the exact contents, but they are doing that, and hopefully people pick it. I hope people pick it up and check it out, because I would hate for people's first experience with Miracleman to be whatever it is that Marvel does. And I say that without trying to insult Marvel, but it's just how I feel. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, go to the source. Go to where it originated. It originated with Mick Anglo. You know, and I mean, I know we have some of those hardcovers that they reprinted, but I would obviously recommend the Alan Moore stuff before I would the Mick Anglo, because it's more, it's probably not as dated, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think Alan Moore has a way of writing that.
Reading the 1953 like prologue issue, it was like, holy smokes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that Alan Moore just has a timelessness to his writing. It doesn't matter really what he's writing, what he's written. Like, it's just like,
as long as it's not like accent heavy, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I know. I have a hard time with accents too. I think that's why I used to I used to not like reading Thor comics.
Yeah.
They were super heavy. Yeah, I'm like, God damn, dude, I don't want to read that. Just fucking, I get it. He's got an accent, you know. Just change the font, and that's enough. But yeah, I think Miracleman there's a reason it's considered, you know, like a cult favorite. I guess you could say cult favorite, because it's not like not everybody has read it, and it's just it's great.
Like, if you were to go to like a Comic-Con and ask like 20 people, hey, have you ever heard of Miracleman? Like, you know, like what are the odds that half of them will be like, yeah?
That's true. That's true. It's kind of sad. I mean, I'm a nerd, and I've always like been super nerdy in terms of like looking up comic book history and stuff from a young age. Like, that's just what I would do. Like, especially like when I couldn't afford to buy a lot of comics, I'm like, well, then I'll just read about the fucking comics. Right. And that's how I discovered Miracleman. And like, I would just like deep dive. It's kind of like what I would do with like, music. If I discovered like a hip hop artist or a band or whatever, I would just try to get everything I could by them. So when I did that with comic book creators, I was the same way. Like, I just sought out everything I could for certain creators that I really loved. Alan Moore was one of those creators. I mean, there's tons of them. Neil Gaiman, obviously, there were certain names. If I saw their name on it, I had to buy it and I would check it out. And this, I definitely think, is one of his best works. And that's only and I'm only talking about the first 4 issues. I hate saying essential reading, but I really think that comic book readers should read this book. This is the type of comic that I think could be in a classroom setting, being taught into a comic book literature class. Like it's just not available. So if it becomes more available, you can get more people to read it. I think it'd be great. I think that I definitely think you guys, anybody that has been interested or has known about it but hasn't had a chance to pick up the singles if that's your thing, and you want to read it with the way it was colored back then as opposed to the new recoloring, because I know that a lot of people that I know that I'm friends with, they don't like the recoloring and stuff that was done from the 80s. Like, it's just too bright, or it's not the original vision of the original colors, right? So you're adding somebody new into the mix. But I do know that it's hard. It can be expensive, and the omnibus is coming out, and that might be the more feasible way to buy it. But hopefully more people, pick it up. More people try to read this book, because that's what usually happens when Marvel fucking drops any kind of a hint of anything. Whether it's in their movies, their shows, their comics, like that kind of like just people just start
gravitating towards it.
Yeah, so
hopefully that's the whole reason why I wanted to read it, because it's about time I should start reading it. And if he's gonna be dropped into the Marvel universe, I might as well be readily prepared for hey Dylan, who's Miracleman? Oh, here, allow me.
No, I mean whatever it takes, dude. Whatever it takes to get somebody to read Miracleman, I'm fine with that. But again, I really don't want to see him integrated into the Marvel universe, because I think that will be a huge fucking mistake. And I don't want to see Johnny Cage anywhere near.
And the thing is, like what you were saying earlier, if they do integrate him into the Marvel universe, I hope that they I hope he doesn't fall by the wayside, like you said. Kind of like how Marvel just recently purchased, got the rights to Alien and the Predator, and all we've gotten from them so far is, we got an Alien comic that was cool, but we got a bunch of variants. What? Give me a Predator book. Give me my Predator book.
Predator had been announced. It was announced. It had a creative team, and then it got whatever reason just got pushed back, and no resolicit, nothing. And that was almost a year ago.
Yeah.
That happened.
Yeah. And can you just imagine the ramifications of a Predator being dropped into the Marvel universe, dude? What?
I mean, again, they could do that for a miniseries, but I think that Alien and Predator should be their own thing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Miracleman should be his own thing. It does not need to be. Just like it really wouldn't have worked in the Spawn universe either, if I'm being completely honest. You know what I mean? It was obviously if I'm Todd McFarlane, I own a comic book company and I have my own comic book, and I can get the rights to Miracleman. Yeah, I'd probably put him in there too. But it doesn't make it needs to be its own thing. And I think you can produce a good comic book under the Marvel banner, but not have it be in the Marvel universe. It doesn't need to be that. It just wouldn't work, in my opinion. And finish the Neil Gaiman and Mark Buckingham stuff first, if they are up for it. I think that should be priority number one. Pay them what they're worth to fucking finish it, because I guarantee you, if maybe that's a way to build up the readership for Miracleman, is by doing that, right? With the Timeless. Maybe that'll get people talking. Maybe the sales weren't there. That's also possible, right? When they were reprinting it, maybe it just wasn't selling anything. Right. But reprints don't always do big numbers anyway. People want new content. that hasn't come out yet. So
right. But like I'm definitely like it's not out of my realm to be like, you know what, I might pick up this omnibus. You know, if the next two volumes that I read deliver like how this first volume delivered, and you know it's not out of my realm of thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna pick up that freaking Alan Moore Miracleman omnibus or original writer.
Original writer. It's just so weird. It's so weird. But anyways,
that's how I'm gonna refer to him as now, the original writer.
The original writer. Okay, I'm gonna read Swamp Thing by the original writer and Watchmen by the original writer as well.
Watchmen or League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with the written by the extraordinary original writer.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Miracleman, it definitely delivers. It definitely lives up to the hype, and it's a fucking awesome comic book. And that's really all I have to say on it. I think everybody should pick it up and read it.
It blew all my expectations out of the water. Like I said, it's not outside of the realm for me to be like, you know, this is something that's probably going to be in my top 3 of Alan Moore stuff.
I think I need to read it all. I can never add something into a best of list until I've read completely. You know, like for me, like Brian K. Vaughan, like my favorite is Y the Last Man, and it will be probably until Saga's finished. You know, but for me, like Alan Moore, it's a toss up. Like Swamp Thing is probably my favorite, but Watchmen is just, it's so good too, you know? And then Promethea jumped up. Promethea, it's like borderline like tied with Swamp Thing for my favorite of his works, you know?
Swamp Thing is my favorite. Like I have no shame in saying that. Swamp Thing is my favorite. Yeah, then I would have to say Watchmen. And I still want to read Promethea. So V is filling the number 3 spot, but as of right now, with how I'm going with Miracleman's going to be in that top 3. It's going to probably get a bump V for Vendetta off.
That makes sense. I can see that. But yeah, that's all I got, dude. Miracleman. Go pick it up. Go read it however you can. Digital, physical, whatever. It's
I did digital. I have to read small print.
Yeah, at least you can zoom in.
Exactly.
I can't fucking stretch my comic book, you know.
I feel like I'm such an old man. Like, what does that say?
I know. I was like going like really close to the page, like fucking squinting. I'm like, what is that, dude? And then some of the coloring, like the black type on like a purple background. I'm like, come on, dude. I can barely fucking read that, you know. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Go read Miracleman and go read. And if you're not already following us, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Comic Lounge. You can follow Dylan on Twitter and Instagram at
Dillbot, and Instagram is the Dillbot, because apparently the Dillbot is taken on the Twitter. The
Dillbot is taken on the Twitter.
Yeah, on the Twitter. Like
that's weird. Who the fuck has Dillbot?
Whoever has the Dillbot on Twitter, I fucking hate that guy.
Yeah, motherfucker.
I don't hate anybody.
And also make sure you like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video goes up. And on that note, we're out.
Later, buds.